like to use this nickel strapping to put together my battery packs. It's really easy to solder, quite easy to work with, so great stuff, and it was fairly cheap. However, one of my recent subscribers, Simon Jewett, has a nice wee video where he does a test to see if the nickel strapping that he bought from China is actually pure nickel or in fact just nickel coated steel strapping. And that's an issue because nickel strapping is 3 times better at conducting electricity than steel is. So I'm hoping that this is actually pure nickel, not nickel coated steel. And the way to find out, there's a couple of ways. The simplest way is to scratch this up. So I'll do that. Scratch this up a bit with some rough sandpaper. So if that is just nickel coated, I will have gone through to the steel. And then I'm going to put some salt. Got a bit of table salt. Throw some salt in here. And then some water. Throw some water in there. Nice and salty. Give that a bit of a swish. And then let's put that in there. Give it a good soak. And I will leave that in overnight and see what happens. If it's nickel coated steel, then we'll see it turn rusty, and if it is pure nickel, it shouldn't rust at all. And here we are 24 hours later, and this is not really what I wanted to see. Okay, here we are 3 days later, and it really is rusted, totally. And it's obviously really is just nickel coated steel. I did another one because I couldn't quite bring myself to believe it, and that rusted just as well, just as much. Okay, so how bad is that? Well, if we look at this website, bluesea.com, it has a nice page on the conductivity of different materials, and they have it as a comparison compared to copper. So if you imagine copper is 100%, then silver is even better than copper. Gold, that's a little bit worse. Nickel is 22% as good as copper. And down the bottom is steel, 3 to 15%. So steel is roughly, let's say 10%. It's around half the conductivity of pure nickel. So that's a bit of a bummer. Wikipedia has a bit more hardcore data on that, but this bluesea.com website is quite easy to interpret. So, what I do know is that the strapping that I've got can cope with my electric lawnmower battery, which when the lawnmower is going full hard out, draws over 90 amps, and it's a 7S 12P, so it's got 12 cells in parallel, which are pumping out more than 90 amps. So somewhere around 8 or 9 amps per cell, which for these old cells is phenomenal. But all that 90 amps is going through this same strapping. And that pack, I know, gets warm after I mow the lawn for sort of 20 minutes. But it doesn't perform that badly, considering. And given that the Powerwall that I'm using, I'm only driving at maximum 20 amps through this strapping, I think what I have is adequate. It's not as good as if it was actually nickel. So I've been a bit gypped. I'm not in as good a situation as I had hoped I would be, but what I have works for my situation. Certainly, I remember Peter from HP Powerwall used copper for his battery bus bars, and if you're obsessed about conductivity, then that's definitely the way to go. Bit easier than getting pure silver. Oh, and just before I wrap up, this is what I bought for basically $40 for 1 kilogram, and on AliExpress, and I'm sure you get almost exactly the same thing on eBay. And now that I look more closely, I see the thing that I didn't pick up is that this is battery tabs nickel plate for 8650 batteries, that's fine. Whereas this one over here says battery tabs pure nickel plate. And it costs twice as, it costs twice as much. So that is the kicker. If you're going to be looking for this strapping, make sure you search for pure nickel, not just plain old nickel, because then you're more likely to get nickel-plated steel. So there's a trick for young players. Not as good as I'd hoped, but still adequate. Oh well, there you go. Hope that's been useful to some of you. Thanks for watching. Cheers.